Hi, this is BRR. In this video session, we'll discuss about session modes, like what are the session modes we have in ASP.NET, how they are going to work, and what is the configurations and how we are going to configure these session modes in ASP.NET. So ASP.NET Session State supports several different storage options for session data. So each option is identified by a value in the session state mode enumeration. If you look at the following description, so this is my ASP.NET session state. I have two modes like inproc and outproc. Inproc is the web server memory and ASP.NET, web server Docker processor area. And when you configure with outproc is an SQL server or a custom defined another storage area where you can place the session. So as I told you, like this session is nothing but the state management technique we are using in ASP.NET to maintain some information across all the pages about web pages or websites information. Then we'll use the session management or session state in the ASP.NET. But how the session is being created and placed in the different areas based on the configurations and what are all the supporting processes and modes by ASP.NET framework. So when you request a URL from the browser, the server will create a session and will pass the session ID in form of cookie to the browser based on the configuration, or will send the session by along with the URL by adding it in the browser itself, or by putting into ASP.NET underscore session ID cookie. It all depends on the configuration which you are put up in the config file of your website. But how configurations are being done for the session, this ASP.NET session with these several options. So if you look at this in proc, like we have web server memory, like you were saying it. So in proc process model is a default session state mode, and it is specified using the inproc session state mode enumeration value. Inproc mode stores session state values and variables in memory and the local web server. It is only the mode that supports the session underscore R and event, because if you go for another the approaches, it won't support session underscore R and event, which is available in the global.athx file. So state server modes, if you look at state server modes, like uh, these are different, but this is by default thing which we are using is inproc mode. So this is going to be stored in the web server local memory. So this process stores session state values and variables in the local web server. That way it is reducing burden on maintaining other web servers and occupying and more resources to manage the session. So now coming to the second one, this is the ASP.NET underscore state.exe. So this is state server. Basically, we are using to store session. So to store session state in the process, refer to ASP.NET state service. This is a service provided by the ASP.NET. So separate from the ASP.NET Docker processor or IaaS application pool. Using this mode ensures that session state is preserved if the application is restarted, and also make session state available to multiple web servers in a form. So if you maintain this session in this particular state, like in a state server mode, the session will be available in multiple web servers in the web form deployment structure. So to use state server mode, you must first be sure that ASP.NET state server is running on the web server, use it for session storage purpose. If not, you have to install it. So where you will find this ASP.NET state server means, if you look at this particular file here, like in the system.root Microsoft .NET, you will find this particular system root. In the system root folder, so you will be having a path of this state servers. Okay, it gives something different. We'll go to this C drive. Windows, Microsoft.NET, and this framework. And here several versions. If I'm using 4.5, in this version number ASP.NET State.exe. If you filter this, you will see ASP.NET State.exe. So this is the path where the state server exe is available. So if your server is not running with this, you have to double click on this so that it will start running the state server on your web server. So once you done this particular installation of the state server, you have to set the state connection string attribute to TCP IP like server name like 42424 in the web.config file. If you look at this web.config file, which is available in website, if you look at recent website, if you can look at here and look at web.config file, and if you look at the session state, since it is not added, it's fine. So we'll open from other source. We'll see how it is opening. So if you look at here, this will store session connection string as like this. So I'm just this I have given for SQL Server. So instead of this, so what you have to maintain, what you have to specify this state server config section is. So you have to specify that session state mode equal to, you have to specify state server and the state connection string as. So if you look at here in the above, you just copy it here. Similar thing we have here. So you have to mention this state connection string like this. So state server and state server configuration, and then you have to specify cookieless equal to false, and timeout you can specify 20 minutes, and this is what the connection string for state server. So if you want to implement state server to capture to store session state, you have to maintain, you have to specify the config file, the string as like this. Okay. Okay, this is how about opening of this session storing session in just copying for more clarity on this. Just looking at these aspects. So this is how I'm going to store this particular state server connection string once I install state server on web server. Similarly, like how it is going to work with SQL Server. SQL Server mode stores session state in SQL Server database. Using this mode, resources that session state to preserve the application is restarted and also make session state available to the multiple web servers you have formed. Even if your web server is restarted, also it will retain the session from the SQL server, and it won't stop your IaaS output processor. It remains works. So no need of restarting it. This is what the other benefit if you configure session state mode as SQL server. So session state server mode, if you specify as SQL server, the connection string you have to specify, like this. This is the connection string. I'm going to specify it like mode is SQL server, time mode is something, and SQL connection string is data source, some database you have to specify here, uh, and user ID and password you have to specify. These are the default user ID and password here. So that way you will specify your the SQL server relevant stuff here. Once you install the ASP state server on the SQL server database, so that the session is going to store in the SQL server, and it is available for all the requests, and it preserves the session ID even the session server is getting shut down or session server is getting restarted, kind of thing. So this is about SQL server. And coming to the another last one is custom, like how custom things are configured for the session state storage. Custom mode specifies generally if you want to store session state data using a custom session state store provider. When you configure your ASP.NET application with a mode of custom, you must specify the type of session state store provider using the provider sub-element of session state. You specify the provider type using an sub-element by adding under session this section. That way it will supply the things to the custom provider attribute for system state. So if you look at the syntax of this particular custom specification, if you want to mention, so how you are going to mention is, so you have to mention the connection string, the before this session state configuration, like say like configuration. So in this configuration, I maintain connection string. So here I can specify connection string like add name of some ODBC connection I'm specifying here. This is the name I'm going to create. So that's why I specified this name, and connection string equal to data source name session state. So this way I'm specifying connection string here. This is all about my connection string configuration. And once you specify this, coming to your session state configuration like this here, you specify session state mode equal to custom, and custom provider equal to ODBC. I specified session service, and type equal to some samples dot ASP net dot session dot ODBC session state source, and connection string name is, as I mentioned, ODBC session service, which I mentioned below. And if you want to write any exception log, you can specify the exception log. So this way you will specify the connection string for custom. So where the custom provider have connection string here, that connection string you have to specify it here, and you have to specify this particular type so that the session can be stored in this custom providers area, and that can be retrieved from that. So the name of the provider instance is then supplied to the current custom provider attribute of the session state element to configure ASP.NET session state to use that provider instance for storing and retrieving session data. So this is all about the using of this session state storage categories methods in ASP.NET. Like one is in web server local memory, that is intro, and state server and SQL server and custom. So these are the session state modes supported by the ASP.NET, and you can store the session based on the architecture you are following, based on the requirement you are having. That based on that you configure the session state mode and retrieve store the session from the relevant space, relevant area. That way you can cope up with the session across all the pages in the website. Hope this clears what is session state and how many modes we have in ASP.NET session. So how they are going to behave and how we are going to configure using config.web.config file. So if you specify this last one off, then session state will be disabled and it can't be used on your websites. Hope this clears like modes of session state and how we are going to configure and how they are working. So please subscribe this YouTube channel for more videos. Thanks for listening. Thank you.